If you read my shirt, you'll know the tone of this movie. Look, how you doing? As in, how you doing? I'm sorry, I can't do that with a straight face. What is up, everybody? Random Man here, bringing you my review for The Invite in one take, as I walk around the backyard enjoying this sunny, sometimes cloudy, summer day. Now, the plot of this comedy film follows Joe and Angela, whose marriage is on thin ice, and when they invite their enigmatic upstairs neighbors for a dinner party, things go into unexpected territory. Going into this movie, I was really looking forward to seeing it after hearing a buzz about it, a bunch of buzz actually, since January, where this movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. It got a bunch of rave reviews there, and it opened a couple of weeks ago here in the United States to a limited capacity before going wide this current weekend. This is also the third directorial effort for feature films by Olivia Wilde, who is also one of the stars of this movie. Her feature directorial debut from 2019, Booksmart, I liked a lot. I thought that was a strong debut to see her skills behind the camera. Her follow-up film from 2022, Don't Worry Darling, was not as strong, to say the least. It was a well-made movie on a technical scale, but had a lot of ideas that turned into very messy results. But now this is her third feature film, and it seems to be the smallest out of all of them and a more intimate kind of affair. So that got me interested on top of the rest of the cast she assembled here. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have Seth Rogen as Joe. Now, he is a former musician who is now a professor of music at a university. And he is the first person we follow right away. And you can say he's basically the anchor of the movie, if you would. And he basically is doing a lot of what Seth Rogen does in this film. I mean, his iconic laugh, something like that. I apologize for the bad imitation. But then also the fact that he likes to smoke weed, and he is probably the most high-strung out of everyone involved here, the four-person cast. And I think that it's not just his comedic prowess that he brings here that I think is a big strength, but it's also him, capital A, acting. He doesn't do that many dramatic roles, and this is dramatic adjacent, even though I just described this movie earlier as a comedy, but I think he gives probably one of his best film performances ever here. Then we have Olivia Wilde as his wife, Angela, who's the one that organized the dinner party in the first place, and she is someone who, again, organized this whole get-together, and Joe seemingly forgot, and both of them initially are clashing basically the entire time, not just when we first see the couple together once Joe gets home from work and is just like, all stressed out, and both of them are just really going at it, talking over each other, a bunch of other stuff here. Wilde gives herself a prominent role, and I think it plays to her strengths as an actress as well. Both of them, Wilde and Rogen, just going off of each other well with the chemistry and the not so good chemistry in terms of them just not being on the same level in terms of how they are in their marriage thus far. They have a daughter who is sleeping over at a friend's house for this night, so seemingly things are supposed to be a lot more calm, but no, that's not the case. But Wilde, I think, gives one of her best film turns here as well. Then we have the couple that shows up here for dinner from upstairs, and they are played by Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. Cruz plays Pina, who's a sexologist, and her character has a lot of personality with her, not just because she's speaking her native Spanish throughout this entire film, on top of English, of course, but she has an edge about her that personally for me is my favorite performance of the entire film. and seeing how she plays off of Joe specifically, Rogan's character, I think that is probably some of my favorite moments of the movie as well, plus some insight she does give across the film. And then we have Norton. Edward Norton plays Hawk, a former firefighter turned masseuse, if you would. First off, there's already a lot of jokes made about his name, and then also he's the most laid back out of all the characters here. So seeing him basically not be sidelined, but playing more on the sidelines to where he is like providing some words of wisdom as well too, and just being more calm and tranquil than the rest of the characters. He's easily the least uptight out of everyone. I think that plays to his strengths as an actor as well. Everyone here is an accomplished performer, but the way they all bounce off of one another with the chemistry or not so good chemistry, the animosity, antagonism, the friendliness, whatever, a bunch of emotions put in between. I think that is a huge part as to why I think this movie is proficiently performed. I think all of the performances here really do stand out and are on a grade A level. Now, getting into the writing of this film. This film was written by Will McCormick and Rashida Jones. Now, these names should be familiar to a lot of people who follow a bunch of movies, as Will McCormick, actually, he's an actor who also is a filmmaker behind the camera. He won the Oscar for Best Animated Short Film for If Whatever Happens, I Love You, or I forget the title actually, but yeah, it's a short film that centers on a school shooting. Oh, If Anything Happens, I Love You. That's the title. That was quite heartbreaking, but it totally deserved the Oscar. And then Rashida Jones, of course, she's a very prolific actress from Parks and Recreation. She's also the daughter of the legendary late, great Quincy Jones. And both of them actually contributed to the script for Toy Story 4, which even after the fifth film just recently came out a few weeks ago, I'm still a defender of Toy Story 4 with whatever they contributed and just what that movie is all about. But anyway, back to this movie, The Invite, which is much more adult in terms of the way the movie is, and it following four adults basically holed up in an entire apartment together. It's basically two apartments in one, as is described here. It's the childhood home of Joe, and with these kinds of movies, they are chamber plays or chamber pieces, if you would. This is something that is ripe for a lot of potential because of what can be done in the space that it is confined to. One thing I should mention too is that this movie is the English language remake of a Spanish film called The People Upstairs, or Sentimental in Español. And that is interesting to note because I've never heard of the original film, and naturally I have never seen it, but seemingly as a nod to that movie, Spanish actress Penelope Cruz was cast here, but also as the strength that was associated with her as an actress. But whatever, it's kind of similar to how I have not seen the movie that was the predecessor to last year's Begonia, and that was the Save the Green Planet movie from South Korea. But I still liked Begonia a lot regardless. And here with The Invite, the title is a double entendre, if you would. It's not just because the couple upstairs is invited downstairs for a dinner party, but there's a lot that ensues here. And with this being a one location movie, kind of like a play, the way it is played around here with the dialogue and how punchy it all is, with how characters are talking and yelling over one another, like I said, with our main couple of Joe and Angela, and then also what is dissected here in terms of relationships, that is the core of this movie, and that is what makes it so riveting all together here, because of how once these characters are eventually together, Joe of course is the most apprehensive about the dinner because he's like, ugh, people are over and all this other stuff. But then when the characters do split off, like Joe was with Bina, and then Hawk is with Angela, and then they eventually come back together, that's when the movie picks up. Not that it wasn't picking up in the first place. I mean, it takes a little bit to get into the movie, but once the dinner party actually starts and other hijinks do ensue, that really keeps it afloat and keeps moving under the direction by Olivia Wilde. The script by McCormick and Jones really is one of the best of the year, but I have to give props as well to Wilde as a director. She really knows what she's doing in working within the space, as literally the majority of this movie, almost every scene in this movie is in this apartment, aside from the initial first few moments. And the way the shots are composed, the framing, the overall composition, and certain choices where we get to see characters' close-ups on faces, and even what they are looking at, seeing, doing, saying when certain shots go back and forth. It is so expertly edited and cut together as well too. It's basically cut in the same way that a lot of the dialogue is rapid firing, and the vision that Wilde has in terms of seeing all this come together, it's kind of like feeling like you're watching something almost boil to an explosion basically, or also having the tension just being so prevalent that you could really feel it all throughout. And even in moments that are more tranquil and more calm, they still supplement what the movie is doing in terms of giving us a bunch to chew on, literally, with its thematic element. And the movie is just absolutely hilarious. This is feverishly funny. This is easily the funniest movie I've seen all year. My audience and I were cracking up the entire way. Even a few guffaws I had with certain moments here that either came out of nowhere, or they're just with the dialogue and other stuff that eventually gets revealed with both couples together. It's something that makes it both very smart and also very tasteful, because eventually with the stuff that goes down in the second half of this movie, the movie goes to a certain direction, but it goes in a way that felt like it still felt in line with the whole feel that the movie was going for. It's not like doing it to a shocking level, aside from what you interpret from the dialogue and what is literally revealed. It does it in a way that still keeps itself held together, and in a sense of that we are watching characters just unravel, and seeing them all just like work with some really didactic dialogue, I think that works in the best way. You could say that this movie in comparison is like another film from not that long ago, Malcolm and Marie, starring John David Washington and Zendaya as this couple that are on the rocks as well too, mostly taking place in their home. And a lot of comparisons have been made with these two movies to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf from the 1960s, which is basically the template for a lot of these one location movies focusing on a couple or multiple couples just interacting with one another here. And that is the best praise that can be given to this movie, on top of just the strengths of it on its own. The way it is paced, it's about an hour and 45 minutes. The score, the music for this film, the original score has a lot of tension built into it too. A lot of strings that are clearly cues for certain moments here when things are just heightening up. Also some piano in some more calmer moments, and just also dividing everything up and making it more diverse with the instrumentation, and even just how the apartment looks itself. I mean, it's a pretty modest home. You can tell that it being two apartments put together to make it bigger than a normal apartment, there's a lot to work with in terms of how characters are moving in and around the space. The cinematography too, with certain shots as well. There's a lot of moments played with mirrors and reflections of characters moving in and out of certain scenes or rooms that I thought was cleverly done to keep it interesting with the whole visual element, because again, it's essentially like you're watching a play, but it never falls into the trappings of it being limited by what it is doing in terms of all of that together. And I think that this is a dissection on relationships that ends in a way that I think worked so well. I loved how this movie ended, because it ends on a moment that could have us interpret a lot of things, while also just taking in what we have witnessed in the whole hour and a half or so prior. So with all that being said, I gotta say that I have little to complain about with The Invite, because The Invite really is, as a lot of people have been saying, one of the best movies of 2026 thus far. It certainly is one of my favorite movies of the year too. And I think that in terms of how people will go into this movie either wanting a laugh or just wanting to see performances that are among the best of the year, you're certainly going to get that. And it's certainly a film for adults, not necessarily for any specific lurid content, although a lot of that is talked about. This is something that I think should get people out in the theater to see this thing, among other things, just because, hey, that's what we're all about here in loving movies. And again, if you couldn't already tell, I loved The Invite. This is one of my favorite movies of the year thus far. I highly recommend it. with all that being said, my final verdict for The Invite is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of The Invite. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.